leading scorer in school history and still ranks among the top scorers in Division I school history. The second player was second player taken in the 1977 NBA draft. He was a four-time NBA All-Star, playing for the Kings, Nets, and Celtics during a 12-year career. He went on to a successful post-playing career, including important work with the Retired Players Association. Please welcome one of our guests, Mr. Otis Birdsong. And our second guest was born in Texas, but went to high school in Denver, where his team won the state championship in 1972. Following his collegiate career at the University of Montana, he was the fourth player taken in the 1978 NBA draft, joining a very talented New York Knicks team. His career covered many stops, both in the USA and around the world, retiring in 2002 after winning championships in France and Italy. He was also a four-time NBA All-Star and two-time first-team defensive player. He was a successful coach, working with his friend Otis Birdsong. They've run countless clinics and camps for young people as global ambassadors for the game. Please welcome our second guest, Mr. Michael Ray Richardson. So, gentlemen, welcome back to the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry about the traffic on the way up. It's a joy to have you with us again today.
And it's a joy being here.
Thanks, Paul. It's always a pleasure, and I'd like to echo your sentiments. We apologize for running late, but we came in from New Jersey, and you all know you live in this area. Traffic is a mess.
It can happen. So let's begin at the beginning. Winter Haven, Florida. When did you first start to get involved in sports? How come you didn't play football right away or some of the other sports? We know Winter Haven is at one time the winter home of the Red Sox. How did you get first pulled into basketball? When did that begin for you?
Well, we grew up in Winter Haven in that area, first being baseball players because of the Red Sox. And so my first love was baseball, and football was second. And in fact, Michael and I was talking about this on the way up here. We didn't integrate the schools in Florida until the ninth grade, until I was in the ninth grade.
Really?
And so when we went to the school, you had like 150 black kids trying out for the football team, 150 white kids trying out for the football team. So you got 300 kids. So the coach told us, if you're late to practice, if you get hurt and can't practice, you're automatically going to be cut from the team. I hurt my ankle the first day of football practice. And I never played football again. I started playing basketball.
Good choice.
I guess it worked out all right.
It worked out pretty well, exactly. And the same question for you, Michael. When did you first discover basketball in your life at all?
Well, I started playing it probably at the 6th grade level. I was at Micheal High School in Denver, Colorado, playing outside on the court, and our principal by the name of his name was Donald Wilson. He saw me outside and said, I think you should be playing basketball. So I started playing on the little elementary team, and I was a success.
Can you all hear Michael? Is that microphone working? Not loud enough? Maybe we can make that a little louder, gents, if we could, just so we can hear Michael. Thank you. So you got hurt on the football field, but you started playing high school football and basketball rather, and then pretty quickly on a very high level. Who was your coach? How did that develop for you, Otis, on the high school game?
Well, my high school coach was Jack Dietrich. He was one of the winningest coaches in Florida when he retired. He's since passed, but he was a great mentor. He reminded me of John Wooten. He was an X and O's coach, no nonsense. Learned the fundamentals first, really taught us how to basketball, how to handle the ball, and he preached teamwork. And we always wanted to take good quality shots. Open man got the ball, and it was fun to play for him. But he really helped me develop being able to move without the basketball and shoot the basketball in the fundamentals of the game.
And same to you, Michael. First you left Texas, you moved to Denver with your family.
I moved to Denver. And my high school coach was a guy who played in the ABA. His name was Floyd Thier. So he was a point guard, but he was a great fundamentally sound basketball guy. So he taught us the fundamentals.
It's very interesting. And Otis, when did the University of Houston and Guy Lewis and that whole part of your life, you were having a very good run in high school. How did you make that remarkable jump, if you think about it, from Winter Haven, Florida to Houston, Texas?
Well, it's funny because the University of Houston was not actually recruiting me at first. We were playing in a Christmas tournament in Winter Park, and the University of Houston assistant coach, Harvey Pate, just happened to be at the game. He was there to recruit someone else. And I played so well during the tournament, then they started recruiting me. And it was funny because the first time I got on a plane was going to Houston. And, you know, Texas, you thinking cowboys. So when I got off the plane, I was looking for the horses and the cows and the cowboy hats. And it's pretty interesting.
You know, I often think about that, the cultural changes that players and folks go through in our game. Everyone assumes it's easy, but you went from Lubbock, Texas to Denver, Colorado, and suddenly you're playing ball in Montana, of all places. How did that come about, and what was that like?
I was recruited by a guy named Judd Heathcote.
Great coach.
And I went up there, and for the first 3 years, I was the only black on the team.
Really?
So it was like I went from an all-black high school to an all-white college.
My goodness. And was it a difficult adjustment for you? Would you have good teammates who welcomed you?
Well, the first year, it was a real big adjustment. But, you know, after that, I mean, everything was great.
And obviously your play grew and grew, because I know that the game did, as you mentioned, you started a little later than some of the other players, but your game started to develop pretty quickly. When did you realize first, I'm going to be pretty good at this game, I could really do this?
Well, I think my sophomore year in college, I started to see where I could probably get to the next level. Like when I first got to college, I was a small forward, and then he switched me over to be a point guard. So after that, I mean, things just took off.
And obviously, your second year in college, you scored 1,000 points. You know, it's one of those record-breaking kind of seasons. So you really settled in very quickly on a very high level, despite the fact that you made this pretty seismic shift of your life from Florida to
Well, Paul, I didn't settle in pretty quickly. My freshman year at the University of Houston, my high school sweetheart was a senior back in Winter Haven, and I was homesick, wanting to get back to her. And so I was actually thinking about transferring back home because I was missing my girlfriend. But
makes sense to me.
But my second year, by the time I became a sophomore, I had gotten over the homesickness and settled in at the University of Houston, and we had some great players, great teammates, and having a lot of fun, and was really enjoying playing at the University of Houston.
And of course, you were playing for Hall of Fame coach Guy Lewis, who had a remarkable career on so many levels, including integrating the Southwest Conference and many other things. What was Coach Lewis like in your world? What did he mean to you?
Well, he was a father figure, and he was the first coach in the Southwest to bring in black players to the universities. And Elvin Hayes and Don Chaney were the first two African-American players to play at the University of Houston in basketball.
They were pretty good.
And Warren McVeigh, who played for the Kansas City Chiefs, he was the first African-American player to play football at the University of Houston. So Guy Lewis was, he's like a father to me, one of the great coaches. I mean, you look at Akeem Olajuwon's career and everybody think he came to the University of Houston as a great player.
Yeah.
The first time I saw Akeem, I was like, Coach, what are you doing this kid?
Yeah.
He can't chew bubble gum and walk at the same time.
Yeah.
But he developed him and worked with him and turned him into a great player.
Well, and Drexler and so many other great players on that Phi Slamma Jamma team and throughout the whole history of Coach Lewis's tenure. And you were with Coach Heathcote, you mentioned, recruited you and brought you to Montana. Was that a good team? I know the team had some success, and they obviously had a great young player joining them.
Well, my sophomore year, we had made it to the Western Regionals, and we lost to UCLA by like 3 points. And then after that, Coach Heathcote, he had left and went to Michigan State where he won a national championship.
Right. Can you hear, I'm sorry, is Michael's microphone still there? It seems soft to me. Can you hear him okay? Just want to make sure everyone got him.
He's trying to pretend he's soft-spoken and everything, you know.
I really am, bro.
He's a madman, trust me.
Not really.
Well, talk about transitions then from the University of Houston, where you have a remarkable career, University of Montana. You're both drafted very high in the NBA draft. It's such a different world than it is today, where the draft's on national television and everyone hugs the commissioner when they walk across the stage and all. When did you know you were going to go in the draft, and what was that experience like? How did you find out you were going to the Kansas City Kings of all places?
Well, it was funny. If I'm not mistaken, my senior year when I came out was the first year when they started inviting players to New York, on a small level though. But Kansas City had told me and my agent and I that I would be the second pick in the draft. So they asked me to come to Kansas City the day of the draft so they can have a press conference there. So during the draft, I was actually in Kansas City. I knew they were going to pick me the week of.
They actually did, which is a pretty good deal, exactly. And when did you know you were going to the Knicks?
Well, when I had found out, I was at the University of Montana outside playing basketball, and I got a call from Willis Reed, said that they was going to draft me number 4 in the first round.
So you wasn't even interested in watching the draft?
I was still playing basketball. I was trying to get better, you know. I was hoping that it was going to happen, and it did. And I was shocked. Really.
Well, it's not a bad thing to get a call from Willis Reed anyway, in any day of the week. That's a pretty good day. So you go again now suddenly into the professional game, playing in Kansas City. It's one of the kind of forgotten teams. It was actually a very interesting team. A lot of talented guys you played with on that Kings team. What was your first impression of going? It was not a very good team when you joined them, but they got, maybe because of you joining them, they got pretty good while you were there. What was your impression of the Kansas City Kings?
Well, my rookie year, we only won 31 games.
Yeah.
And, of course, the coach got fired. It was really hard, having to deal with all those losses coming from a program like Houston where we won a lot of games. And so it was really frustrating my rookie year. But I learned a lot. Lucius Allen really taught me a lot, taught me how to be a professional. And then we brought in Cotton Fitzsimmons the second year, drafted the great Phil Ford, who was like a 3-time All-American at North Carolina, and we took off from there.
Absolutely, but were there mentors? One of the things I wonder about the modern game with so much change and turnover, a lot of the teams in those days had guys who'd been around, who'd been in the game. You mentioned Lucius Allen, kind of veterans who were on the team who kind of maybe showed the younger guys how to live, how to exist. Was there anyone like that on the Kings team? Yeah,
Lucius was the only one. Ron Boone, who was a tremendous talent in his own right, he and I played the same position, so he hated me. They drafted me, and he was the starting 2-guard, and so he didn't teach me anything.
Right.
Without Lucius, I would have been in trouble. But back then, because guys now they make so much money, but back then guys were not coming out of high school or coming out of college. Coming early out of college, because it was tough to make a team back then.
That's right.
The guaranteed contracts. They didn't give you guaranteed contracts like that 10 years, 7 years, 8 years.
Yeah.
No. Every year you were fighting for a job. So these players who you were playing against, they're not trying to help you.
Yeah.
They're trying to take your job.
It's funny, I remember talking to Satch Sanders at one point. I said, I'd noticed playing for the Celtics, he never missed a game for years. And I said, how did this possible? He said, you didn't want to miss a game. Someone would take your job. You didn't want Red to think, I can make a change here. Same question for you. You joined, obviously, going from Montana to New York City to Madison Square Garden, playing for the Knicks. Not a very good team when you got there. Got very good after a while.
No, but I remember when I had first got to New York, and I had flew in about 11 o'clock that night. So when I woke up the next morning, I was wondering, where is the grass? Because there was no grass. It was all, cement. But, it was like going from like the smallest city in the United States to the biggest. So it was like a big eye opener. But my mentor was Earl the Pearl Monroe.
That's pretty good.
When I got there, he was. We used to call him Black Jesus. As a rookie, he wanted us to call him Black Jesus. So. But he was a great mentor.
Exactly. Well, a pretty great player, great gentleman. So in both cases, you were part of a team that started pretty poorly, and that as you were there for a couple of years, got better as you were there.
I remember my first year, I was drafted by Willis Reed, and into 14 games into the season, he was fired.
Yeah.
And they brought in Red Hosman. Well, at that time, Red Hosman didn't believe in playing rookies. So after Willis played, after Willis had left, I didn't get to play anymore. So it was really tough.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So I always tease him, Paul. I said, well, if you could play, he would have played you, man.
Hey, but that following year, and I told Red Hosman during the season, I said, you're going to regret not playing me. So the following year, I came back and played in all 82 games. I led the league in steals and assists and made the All-Star team.
Well, then think
so
about
it wasn't me.
Exactly. Second year in the league. He leads the league in steals and assists. It's kind of a remarkable thing. And I should point out, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have an opportunity. If you guys want to ask a question or join the conversation, we certainly want to include you. So start to put those thoughts in your head. We'll be happy to include you in a little while. So back to the question, both teams were not good. You joined the team, both remarkable talents. And it worked out. Both teams got much better while you were there. Kansas City makes the playoffs. The Knicks went from really not good to a remarkable, fun team. I remember that team very well with Ray and so many great players.
Sly Williams.
Exactly. Yeah. When did you start to think, this is pretty good. It's working out here. This team can really beef. Did you feel it gelling in Kansas City? Did you feel it gelling with the Knicks?
My second year in the league.
Yeah.
We made the playoffs. Had a great run. Phil Ford was Rookie of the Year. I made the All-Star team in my second year, and so they were drafting players. Cotton Fitzsimmons was loved and was a great coach, and we were headed in the right direction. And, I mean, we ended up, my last year in Kansas City, we went to the Western Conference Finals, and Houston beat us with the great Moses Malone. He was just too much for us, but, yeah, we...
Absolutely. Same thing in the Knicks. When did you start to think, boy, this is a special group, this is a special team?
Our second year, we had won 50 games, and we had made it to the playoffs, and I think we had lost in the second round to the Chicago Bulls. But it was a great year. We had Ray Williams, Marvin Webster.
Mike Glenn, still on the team?
Mike Glenn.
Yeah. Spencer and some...
Toby Knight, Spencer Haywood.
Yeah, all kinds of great players.
Good players.
Was
Absolutely.
Michael on that team?
Yeah, he was... I think he was traded in the middle of the year.
But after you both had established yourself for a certain couple of years in Kansas City and in New York, this is the business of the game. Things change, and you were traded for Bernard King. And you both end up, of all places, in New Jersey, the Nets. When did you first meet each other, and when did you first become teammates and friends? Was it an easy, because you're very different backgrounds?
Oh, no, we met when he was playing in New York and I was in Kansas City. He was trying to guard me, which, they would have to put Ray Williams on me because he couldn't hold me down. But
he averaged 25 points against everybody else except me.
No, he's right. He's right. I averaged 35 against him.
Well, to that point, while we're on the subject, and we'll come back to that in a minute, but I don't want to lose that segue. You were, I think, an underappreciated still defensive player. You were really a good defensive player, not just a really good, you were a great defensive player.
I mean, if you make the all first team defensive team in the NBA, you got to be stopping somebody. That's how I try to explain to Otis.
Yeah.
I mean, it just wasn't him. I was stopping everybody.
Was it part of your game always, or how did you realize, when did you focus on that to make it a special part of your game?
Well, I know, like, when I first got to college, and, that there's, guys already there that's, offensive players. So I know if I wanted to play, I would have to play the defense. So I always was a great defensive player.
Absolutely. So let's...
He was and I played with him, I played against him. His anticipation off the ball, it wasn't like, he was big for a point guard.
Right.
But as far as locking you down, if you put it in front of him, he had great hands. I mean, just cat-like hands. And the anticipation help defense, and his anticipation. To average 2 or 3 steals a game is phenomenal.
And I remember watching your ability to leap and respond and so quickly to passes when other people there was no chance you were going to steal that ball, and you'd steal that ball. Just remarkable ability.
I think it was great anticipation, just knowing where the ball was going to be.
Well, it's that basketball IQ thing that people talk about so much. You had a real feel for the game, obviously, all the time, as did you, as a great shooter, great scorer, beautiful player to watch. You were really in your element when you were coming into the league as a scorer. Did that develop through your game over the years, or do you always feel that smoothness, that confidence in your offensive ability?
Well, growing up, I learned how to move without the basketball watching John Havlicek. Because growing up in Winter Haven, you mentioned the Red Sox, but I got to listen to every Boston Celtic game on the radio. Yeah. I was a huge Celtic fan. And so when they were on TV, I would watch John Havlicek, the way he moved without the basketball. I idolized Pete Maravich. I used to wear the floppy socks like that in high school. And the ability to shoot the basketball, to be honest with you, I tell people, I came out the womb being able to shoot the basketball. Yeah. It truly was a gift from the Creator. There's no doubt. For the longest time I can remember, even in the 5th and 6th grade, I could shoot the basketball. So it was just a gift. It really was.
Absolutely. And you scored, of course, in many other ways.
Well, I wasn't a great shooter in the NBA. I mean, I could get to the basket, and I would have good nights and I would have bad nights. But when you're shooting 52% from the field for your career, that means you can shoot the basketball.
Absolutely.
And I played with him. He was a great shooter.
Yeah.
And I remember I was telling Otis, listen, I saw Otis get that big contract. So I said, I got to stop passing to be a shooter. You know what I mean? So I was just tease Otis all the time, but Otis, he can really shoot the ball.
So let's talk about that Nets team for a little bit. The Exit 16W Nets, as Bob Ryan used to always call them in the Boston Globe. It's a remarkable team of remarkable characters. What a talented, interesting group of people. First, when you two joined the team, was it a positive for you? Were you happy to go to New Jersey, or was it kind of like, what the heck happened? How did I end up here? Or was it a positive part of your life?
Well, it was like a dream. It was a dream come true for me because when I was growing up, the coach, Larry Brown, used to coach in the ABA, coached the Denver. At that time, it was the Denver Rockets.
Right.
So I used to go to all of the basketball games. So when I got a chance to play for him, it was like a dream come true.
Absolutely. And how about you?
I really didn't want to come to New Jersey. When I was a free agent my last year in Kansas City, I actually signed with Cleveland. And you say Cleveland. Well, Ted Stepien, who was the owner at the time, he also signed Scott Webman, who was the teammate of mine in Kansas City,
right.
Two-time All-Star. He signed Bobby Wilkerson, the 6'6" point guard who played in Indiana. He signed James Edwards, the big center. So I'm like, I'm excited. We're going to build something in Cleveland. I had a sister living in Cleveland. She's still there. And so I was excited to be going to Cleveland.
Sure.
And then Kansas City matched the offer and traded me to New Jersey. So I didn't know what to expect when I came here. And my thoughts were right too, Paul. And I don't know if you want to touch on it now, but I played for 5 coaches in 7 years in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Oh,
that's not fun.
No.
That's 5 different systems in
Absolutely.
7 years.
Yeah.
It was not fun at all.
No, and a remarkably talented, interesting group of players that were put together on that team. You know, from the kind of Mike Jaminski and Michael Corrin to Darryl Dawkins and you gentlemen, Buck Williams. I wanted to ask you about Buck in particular. My son Ben asked me about him this morning. He said, "Dad, you know, tell me, Buck Williams, how good was he? What kind of a player was he? Tell me about Buck Williams on that team."
Buck was a unbelievable rebounder.
Yeah.
He would probably, in this here day and time, he would probably average 15 rebounds a game. Yeah. If that ball's anywhere near that on that backboard, he's going to go get it.
He thought it was his. He was the hardest working player on the team. I mean, he was fierce. He should be in the Hall of Fame. When you
real close.
Look at his stats, say he should. I mean, as many years as he played, as many rebounds as he got, and he made 3 or 4 All-Star teams, he definitely should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I know you work, both gentlemen, you work with a lot of young people around the world and doing clinics and camps. And one of the things that both of you went through in your careers, overcoming obstacles, whether it's getting traded, whether it's injuries, things happen in life. What do you share with young people about how you dealt with that, you know, and how you continue to do that? What do you think people should know about overcoming obstacles? And something that a lot of folks in our game have experienced, and obviously you have to work through that, but how do you share that with young people?
Well, what you got to do is you got to realize this. Once you get to the bottom, you can't go no lower. You can only go up. And what you got to do is, if you put yourself in a situation, you got to be the one to get yourself out of the situation. And you got to believe in your higher power. Well, whatever your higher power is, that's what you got to believe in. And if you believe in, you can truly get yourself out of it.
Well, I look at it. When I talk to kids and even adults, Paul, you know, say, well, I got a big problem. It's really not a problem. It's a challenge and an opportunity to overcome an obstacle. My wife likes to say the vicissitudes of life, which means you're always going to have something going on in your life that you have to overcome. So it's not really a problem, and it's going to make you better. And I hope I can get through this quick. My sophomore year, I played in the Pan American Games, and we won the gold medal in Mexico City. So my junior year, I tried out and Michael was there too, we tried out for the Olympic team. So I didn't make the Olympic team, but I was an alternate. So I was devastated. Dean Smith was the head coach. He took 7 guys from the ACC and 5 guys from Indiana. I mean, I hated Dean Smith for a long time. I really did. And I begged Guy Lewis, I say, Coach Lewis, please, please get us a game my senior year against North Carolina, please. He couldn't get the game. Right. I was home in the summertime. He called me. He said, Otis, I got some good news and bad news. I said, well, give me the bad news. He said, I couldn't get a game with North Carolina. He said, what's the good news? You're playing UCLA New Year's Day on national TV at UCLA. So
there you go.
But I used that disappointment not making the Olympic team and carried it on to my senior year in college. And my whole year I was just focused on just being better. And I averaged 30 points a game my senior year. But it was because of my disappointment and anger and frustration of not making the Olympic team.
Absolutely. And Mike, you went from, again, Lubbock, Texas, Denver, Colorado, New York City, Golden State, and suddenly you're playing overseas. All over the world you played. You played in France, you played in Italy, you played in Croatia, different cultures, different things. I used to hear, I was working for the league back in the 90s in the league offices, and I'd hear about how great you were being received in France and how popular you were. You know, how was that for you to settle into those new cultures and play?
I left the NBA in 1988 and I went overseas. I played 5 years in Italy, a year in Croatia, a year in Israel, and the rest of my time in the south of France. I played over there for another 13 years, played till I was the age of 46. So, I mean, it was unbelievable over there. They really, really love basketball over there. And if you win one or two championships, you can play forever.
And how did you communicate with your teammates and the coaches and everything like that? Was that ever a challenge?
Well, when I first got there, I wanted to go to school to learn how to speak Italian. So I went to school for about 3 days. I couldn't learn it. So what I started doing was I started going to the restaurants and just sitting there and listening to people speak. Because if you listen to people speak, they say the same thing over and over and over.
Sure.
So once I started doing that, then I started learning how to speak the language. I can speak Italian, I can speak French. I mean, it was easy after that.
Now, Paul, I'm going to tell you the real truth. The reason he learned to speak Italian is he knew with all those beautiful Italian women over there, if I'm going to be able to talk to them, I need to learn the language. That's why he really learned.
The international language of love.
Hey, listen,
Exactly.
it's international language. You know,
There you go. Exactly right. Again, folks, if you'd like to ask a question to one of these gentlemen, please raise your hands. One of our staff members will bring you over to the side, and we'll include you in the conversation in just a minute. So we'll head you over here, folks, okay? But again,
Paul, I do want to mention that you just mentioned about Micah playing overseas.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell them how they just honored you?
Oh yeah, about a month ago, and I haven't played over there in about 30 years. So they called me back and they wanted to retire my number.
really?
So they flew me back over to Bologna, Italy, and when I walked into the gym, I got a standing ovation for about 15 minutes.
Isn't that wonderful?
30 years later.
Congratulations.
I mean, 30 years later, it was unbelievable.
Isn't that, show them some love, folks. That's pretty special. That's wonderful. Isn't that great? You both played with a lot of great teammates. You great centers. The game has changed so much. Back when you guys were playing, there were still big men in a traditional role. Both of you played with some remarkable ones, from Sam Lacey to Darryl Dog, all kinds of guys, Mike Jaminski. Who was special that you liked to play with as a teammate in that particular role? Anyone jump to mind?
Well, I played with Bob McAdoo.
Yeah.
And when I tell you that he could shoot the basketball, I never forget it. We had went to play the LA Lakers, and I saw him score 18 jump shots in a row. He was a pure shooter.
Yeah, absolutely. Otis?
Of course, Michael, notwithstanding, I always enjoyed playing with him. But I would have to say Phil Ford and Sam Lacey. Sam, because he was so fierce and tenacious, really loved the game of basketball and played so hard every night. And Phil Ford had eyes in the back of his head. I mean, if you got open, he's going to get you the ball. And so really enjoyed playing with those two guys.
Absolutely.
But he's always, you know what Otis always teased me about? The best point guard he ever played with was Phil Ford.
Well, you were ahead of your time. Exactly. Please come on over and give us your name and your question for one of these gentlemen.
Hi, my name is Lamar from New Jersey. So I definitely know about that trip. I know it can get crazy. So we're here for the night. But I had two questions. Well, I was going to ask, since, top all-time defensive team, who was the hardest player you guarded? But I guess, Earl the Pearl. But I was going to ask, for all the NBA players today, who do you see today that patterns your game?
I would say probably Russell Westbrook, because he gives you a 100% offensively and defensively.
Yeah, I would say Russell Westbrook for you too, because he never passed the ball. And when you were playing with me, I was supposed to be the shooter, and you never passed the ball.
But you listen, hey, if I was going to pass the ball, I couldn't make no money. I had to be like you.
I would have to say Klay Thompson and the kid from Portland.
Dame.
C.J. McCollum.
CJ?
Yeah, those two guys would be more similar to me.
I was going to say Clay, and of course when you were playing, the three was really not so much in vogue.
The coach wouldn't allow us to shoot them.
Exactly.
I mean, Cotton Fitzsimmons, when I played in Kansas City, when the three came in, we couldn't shoot threes unless it was desperate and we needed a three to try to win or tie the game. But if we came down and shot a three, we'd be like, what are you doing?
Thanks so much for your question. Thank you. Come on over, sir. Your name, please, and your question for one of these gentlemen.
Hi, I'm Darren from Jersey also.
Hi,
How you
Darren.
doing? What advice would you have for younger athletes right now, younger point guards? Like, you had vision that was incredible on the court, you had a great shooter. What kind of advice would you have for them coming up now to get their passing game tight and their vision?
Well, I think the AAU is really hurting basketball because it doesn't teach the kids the fundamentals. I think what you got to do is basketball to start with the fundamentals, dribbling, passing. If you're able to teach the kids the fundamentals at an early age, I think they'll be successful.
I agree. And I would also add that you as a parent and the rest of the parents, don't put pressure on these kids. Let them enjoy playing the game of basketball. It's supposed to be fun. If they're meant to make it to the NBA or get a scholarship, they will. Just don't put pressure on them. Let them enjoy playing the game. These parents put so much pressure on these kids to be great, they don't enjoy it. They start playing for the parents instead of playing for the enjoyment of the game. And I think that's a detriment.
Thank you, sir. Well, hello there. How are you?
Hey,
And I'm from LA.
you from LA?
I'm from New York.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
Could I see you make a shot?
I'm sure it was. What was that question?
I don't know. What's your question?
You wanna
Can I make a shot? Oh, can you make a shot?
You can make a shot.
Oh, you want to see
we'll
us
do
make
that later
a shot?
on. Okay. What's your question, pal?
My name is Saul, and I'm from New York. And how tall are you?
I am 6'4".
You're 6'6".
6'4". As you get older, you I think you get smaller.
Yeah.
You get smaller and you get wider.
I'm 6'4".
Thank you, sir. Okay. And let's go back to that question, though. Who was the toughest player to defend for you?
I would say George Gervin. I remember when George Gervin, he was going for the scoring title, and that afternoon, David Thompson had scored like 61, 62. So George had to score 69 to win. So I was playing with Paul Westphal, and so
Tell the truth.
George played against us. George scored 35 points in the first 12 minutes and didn't even sweat. He ended up scoring 70 points in 3 quarters and won the scoring title.
Hey, Paul, this is what's funny, though. Now, wait. By his own admission, 2-time defensive player, all defensive team.
Yeah.
He's a great defensive player, is that right? He just said George Gervin scored 70 points.
But not on me.
Wait. So if he's on the team, he's starting. I played against Paul Westphal.
Yes.
Paul Westphal he's in the Hall of Fame now, but he couldn't guard that basket. And that basket not moving.
Yeah.
So if George Gervin is on the floor and I'm a coach, I'm going to put my best defensive player on him or I'm going to put Paul Westphal on him. So he's trying to convince me that Gervin scored 70 on Paul Westphal. I'm like, no, he got 70 on you.
No, he didn't get 70 on me, he got 70 on all of us.
Well,
For me, it was the guy from LSU. And I had to guard as the two position, Michael Jordan, World Be Free, George Gervin, David Thompson. But I wish people could, if Pete Maravich was playing now.
Can you imagine?
He wouldn't be able to walk out the door. He would be a phenom. Think about it. He averaged 44 points a game for his college career without a three-point line.
Absolutely.
How do you do that?
No, whenever I take young people through the Hall of Fame, I always stop at Pete's picture upstairs, and you got to go home and Google him. I said, You'll love him, because if you don't know his game, how much fun he was to watch, and so inventive and special.
He's the only guy that I had to guard Michael. But the night before the game, I was like, dang, I got to put up with Pete tonight. I just hated guarding him. He was phenomenal.
Absolutely. Well, you've both spent a lot of time since your playing career, first in the business community and coaching in Canada and all around the world, which must have been fascinating, and I wish we had more time to talk about that. But again, you've spent a lot of time dealing with young people and trying to mentor young people, not just at home, but all around the country and all around the world. First, how did that come about that the two of you decided to do that? And B, what message, you've talked about some of the messages you leave with the parents about the joy of the game, but what would you like to say to the young people here today just about basketball and a message to leave with them?
Well, what Otis and I have done, we have started a company called Ball Stars Youth Camps, and we've been doing it for about 9 years. And what we do is we go all across the United States doing free basketball camps for underserved kids, and we just use basketball just to get the kids, but what we try to do is teach the kids life skills.
Right.
And so that's our way of giving back. You can take over.
Yeah, and basketball is important, but we want them to know that, first of all, education is important, if not the most important thing, because realistically, you got a better chance of hitting the lottery than you do of making it to an NBA team. And that's just reality. That's not to discourage anyone. It's just reality. So we have professionals come in and speak to the kids about health and wellness, the dangers of social media, drug and alcohol prevention, the importance of education. And so we, like Michael mentioned, we want to teach these kids life skills. But for those kids who are serious about trying to become a professional athlete, it takes a lot of hard work. When you see LeBron and Steph Curry and those guys, you're looking at the product on TV. You don't see the behind the scenes. Like when Kobe was in the league, he was practicing 8 hours a day. Yeah. You just don't see it. You think they have a gift, but they work on that gift. It's hard. It's not easy.
And that gift can be in education. That gift can be in many other things.
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with being a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher. In fact, Michael's daughter is a doctor in New York. So. We want the kids to enjoy the game first and foremost. It's supposed to be fun, and then you have to work hard. You have to you have to sacrifice. It's hard work.
Well, I appreciate you putting up with the sacrifice of driving through that bad traffic from New Jersey to get up here and join us today. We're going to have folks come by and sign a few autographs to the side here, but before we do that, join me with one more round of applause for our special guests, Michael Ray Richardson and Otis Birdsong.